Good morning, Lucy. Here is Julika. I'm really happy to have you here with me live, or let's call it raw. And in a way, we'll see how we edit this for a conversation. It's a, I think, a really curated but also natural conversation about our topics that are dear to us. I'm hosting this in a series of trends in mental health and what is new on the radar or what is maybe to stay or to go away. That is maybe for the discussions to happen. I'll briefly introduce myself and then I hand it over for you to put it in your own words. So I'm hosting this as Julika here in Amsterdam as a design therapist, psychologist, and a designer. And I am really curious about also how we make the field of therapy, psychotherapy, or well-being. Yeah, so not just treating diseases, but also designing for well-being. And that's how and why I reach out to entrepreneurs like you. And I announced a bit the topic of spatial organizing, decluttering. Your space is a great NOMA. People know maybe already a bit better what they can expect. And yeah, I'll just guide our listeners through 20 minutes, 25 minutes to learn more about this because I think the world needs to know this. So, would you do us the pleasure of introducing yourself?
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So my name is Lucie. I'm also based in Amsterdam and I own a business called Your Space by Lucie, and we are professional home organizers. So what we do is we help people with their spatial organization, with their home environment,
Mhm.
making sure that their home environment is functional, is nourishing, it is contributes to the well-being. So if people have different unresolved issue in their lives, the environment is not in the way, and then they can really focus to going towards well-being through different fields like therapy or such. So
When
a
you
very
say,
functional field.
I love it, that is succinct and always good to hear from the person itself. We always can visit a website, I think, but experiencing the person and the vision behind it matters so much. When you say we, who is your space at this point?
Well, at this point, it's me and my team member, Christina.
Yeah.
So it's just two of us in our company. I would say most professional organizers are like a solo person,
Hmm.
but somehow there is a big demand for it in Amsterdam. So we are growing, and hopefully we will keep growing in the future if the values and everything aligns. So.
Yes, I truly hope and believe in that. For full disclosure, is I have first met you as a client. I reached out and I want to put that on the table because I do, as much as I emphasize experiences and a first-hand experience, people so that people know why I'm in this, right? It took me a while to allow myself to have that service. Why would I pay someone to spatially organize or help me with a move that's upcoming? But we can get to that later. But just, yes, there is some prior connection and warmth in this virtual room. Tell me about your practice missions. Why, in your own words, why are you here? Like, what is really making you put these extra hours in? Like, being an entrepreneur is really taxing and you have harder problems to solve someone. You can't walk away at 5 p.m. sometimes. So why are you in this?
So maybe a bit of a background, like I actually always aspired to be a physiotherapist.
Mhm.
I don't think that you know that actually, but um, like there was always a drive to the body for me and to understanding how the human body works. And then through that, obviously going naturally into, oh, there are aches and pains, and it's also complex, and how can it work together, and how can we bring people towards more well-being. And I was always looking at it through the lens of the body, until I started diving a lot into psychosomatics. So, what is the connection of the mind and the body?
Mhm.
Reading a lot of books, taking a lot of courses. I had my own mentor in Asia, and I was working with her, and I was leading a workshop on, the like just about the nervous system and how that relates between the body and the mind. And I realized during the exercise, there was a huge element of the environment, the safety of the environment, the distractions, all the inputs that come in through to our nervous system. And I was like, well, this is not like psychosomatics, it's not the connection of the mind and the body, it's the mind, the body, and the input from the environment that you're getting.
Hmm.
And that should not be overlooked.
Hmm.
And together with my natural tendencies for, interior design and just like being organized, I think as most people in this field, it's just our passion. It's something we love to do. But
Hmm.
like seeing that it's not just, having fun organizing things nicely, but how much it affects our nervous system, and that could also be a path towards well-being, and that I don't have to be either a therapist or psychotherapist in order to help people function better.
Hmm.
That just beautifully connected. And then, yeah, your space
I
arose from that 5 years ago.
I love this anecdote. Thank you for sharing that. So you really widened your lens. You said I cannot just look inside, and it's more than a diffuser or just the lighting. You're saying it's more. So we'll get to that maybe through an anecdote. Is there a story that you can tell us where your job is applied that helps us understand a bit more? What are you doing in your everyday, or how does that play out in your work, in your service?
Okay, so there is a really huge scale of clients that contact us, from clients who can have deep, complex issues that are, mental and physical and environmental. So speaking of their home, because that usually reflects how we're feeling on the inside,
Hmm.
all the way to high performing clients who are very successful, and they just are looking at ways to optimize their life because they're seeing, okay, like how can I tweak things. So on a very practical level, when I come to a client, obviously we start with a consultation and really being like, what is your goal here? Where are you at, and where do you want to be? Because it's so different for everybody. Like some people are literally drowning in their own home, and some people are like, I think I could save up more energy. I could save up more mental energy, more bandwidth
Hmm.
if my home is like better. So basically, after the initial assessment, we literally come in and hands-on work with the client to adjust the environment so it functions better. So, concrete example, I would have a very high performing client with 3 kids, 2 businesses, a lot going on. And, it's just that like mental, where did I put this or where did I put that? And if the kids need this, like what is the exact system for, I don't know, the clothing between the kids, right? Like how do I store it? Where do I get to it when the kids are the appropriate age? Just like making sure that there is zero extra energy spent
So that
to
sounds
have
like
to
a
figure these
client.
things out.
That sounds like a client who's really looking to improve a small area of change. And
Mhm.
rightly so, it includes that is for us to set the goals and to say, where do I want to optimize or, yeah, elevate my
Exactly.
well-being.
And it
Yeah.
was it was really interesting to see that after a couple of weeks of working with this client, even though it seemed like such a small thing,
Yeah.
she did send me a voice note after a couple months being like, hey, I became a better mother. I have a more bandwidth for my children
Mm.
because I don't have to worry about all those things in the house. I managed to achieve other dreams that I had on my list because I was not distracted by the environment. So even though it seemed like, it's just optimization and it's such a
Yeah.
small work, it made huge difference in her life. So that is what
That
and
this is really what I think I'm learning and talking to you is this is not just about making spaces Instagrammable or following the vanilla trend or vintage trend, but it's really, you say we put people first and spaces second. So it's really looking um, not maybe just as a nice to have, but almost maybe this is a needed to have. Like, how do I create a space that allows me to feel safe? So it's really about like basic feelings in terms of a need hierarchy and so that I actually can achieve the most important things in my life, being a person myself that grows, being a parent, being a partner, being a builder of something. So tell me how much does mental health or psychology matter in this? So maybe yeah, that is goes a little bit still under the mission, the why. How important is this space for mental health? And maybe give some examples of like mental health issues, how they've played out, and not just like
Mm.
preferences and well-beings, but maybe even a mental health diagnosis. We looked at
Hmm.
depression, anxiety, or people that are neurotypical.
Yeah, so in the previous conversation that we were having personally, it's really this was an example of just one client where it was really more about well-being.
Yeah.
Then we have other a whole different side of our clientele who indeed I would say 50% of our clients are neurodivergent. And there is like I've worked with people with brain trauma, with psychological trauma, with very often with ADHD or the autism spectrum or different bipolars. And this you would think, oh, that's a field for a therapist to work with. But obviously, because certain things are so complex, they really do reflect your energy levels, how you behave in your environment, how much energy you have to manage your environment.
Mm,
And then it it becomes a vicious circle, right? So if you're not feeling well in your head, some of my bipolar clients, for example, if they are in their depressive state, their house reflects it immediately.
mhm,
And then it's really hard for them to get out of that state while they can be trying with a therapist or they can be doing amazing things. The moment they come to the house and there is, rotten food and trash everywhere because they can't cope, like energy wise, with
mm,
tidying up their environment, or it's just too taxing. So we also come to clients like this and to just be like, let's pick up where we left off
mm.
and just like organize, like make your environment as simple as possible so you allow that room for not feeling at your 100%.
Yeah.
And like also just I really am seeing through many different anecdotes, and we would be here for much longer if I would be to say them, but to see how I do believe that there is something about the physical movement of the body and actually physically doing something where you're also mentally sort of digging yourself out of the pit that you're in. So really, I think it's so important to approach everything from like several angles, like psychotherapy or emotional therapy, like all these approaches. But there is also something about like actually physically getting up
Yeah.
and starting to sort your environment and go through your possessions and start sorting your life in the very physical, very practical aspect.
So that's very easy to imagine what you're describing. So that's also where often the work of a psychotherapist ends. They do the inner work, the behavior, the emotions, and the thinking. But a therapist rarely would go into someone's home and practically solve or tidy. And that's where the services kind of connect seamlessly. I really love this. Like, and it's needed. It's really complementary. And it's focusing on what you're saying on what happens in between psychotherapy sessions.
Mhm.
Is this
And the psychotherapy sessions are also really helpful for in between
yeah,
our sessions.
yeah,
So sometimes if we are processing other possessions that
yeah,
somehow trigger a lot of trauma, I always say like make sure that you do have a way to process this if
yeah,
the project is very heavy, so we can physically get into certain areas that are so triggering that I say, can you go for a walk? Can you journal? Can you talk to a friend? Can you have a therapist to discuss this with? What came up for you during our sessions of like going through decluttering, going through possessions.
and it's beautiful. Yes, I talk with couples about their space. There's sometimes even conflict about how a bedroom is used or how a living room is kept. And you were saying, uh, um, don't one of your credos is don't open a box you can't close. So when you're with your clients, you have to sometimes set boundaries when they reveal something to you and say, look, this, I'm not the person to talk about this with, but you have a lot of valuable information on this. I love where this conversation is flowing. And maybe let's move over to what is an unresolved issue for you. What do you think is something where even the community or the listeners can help, or what you're trying to figure out? I mean, that's it's also making a bit vulnerable, like this is trying what I'm trying to build, or maybe this is the understanding I'm trying to raise. What is something that you've been busy with?
Well, maybe a frustration of mine, of course, is like as a person, you would just love to help the human being in front of you on so many, on
Yeah,
all those levels, right? And it really just relates directly to what we spoke about, that we really need a like interdisciplinary approach. So I can be working with someone on decluttering their home, but if someone is having like hoarding tendencies or collecting tendencies, I can obviously try to make that person reflect as much as they can on their habits of acquiring stuff or not being able to let go. But at some point, I could see, oh, there is a deeper trauma or there is a deeper issue, and I can observe that, but I cannot go there because
mm,
I'm not a trained therapist.
mm,
And like sometimes I just so wish that I would be and I would be able to solve it all.
mm.
But I mean, we all have our own area of specialty. And so I think it's just really important that like our industries are all communicating with one another, that we are all knowing what is out there, spreading the awareness and being like, we can like in order to for a person to heal, we need to work on the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, the physical aspect, and the environmental aspect, and the relational, right? Like
You
environmental
call
in
it
sense
you
of
call this for
society.
sorry for over talking on you. You call this for interdisciplinary work. Like, how can we communicate, sit at a round table, and to best help someone integrate these pieces?
Yeah, like also seeing where is the sort of where does one service end and another one begins
Hmm.
in a seamless way, and not only between us professionals. And I'm so grateful that, for example, you're doing this interview because that's exactly what you're doing, right? You're like, let's have a conversation. Let's bring awareness about the fact that here in the mental health space there is a spatial organization and it is important.
Yeah.
And so not only for us professionals to keep raising awareness that we all need to collaborate in order to help, but also for just for people to know, for whoever needs help, to see, okay, which approach have I not looked at, or which angle have I not looked at yet,
And,
when I'm
and
trying to solve a particular problem.
And maybe also to remove the stereotypes or the stigma on some of them. I think those are, we were saying earlier, like it is not just about making a room look well, it's about making it function well, that the habits work. Yeah, you were saying, I asked people what works well when you walk into a room. That's like atomic habits. So some
Hmm.
people might really be into optimizing and productivity, but like where do you put your keys down? Or what do you do with your clothing? And that can lead to conflict that I would then maybe even address in a relationship therapy session. Um, Lisa, this is going wonderful. We have about a few more minutes to listen. Um, what is something that comes to mind for you now that we're talking? What is something that you feel is really important for the audience to hear?
Well, something that just came up now for me when you were saying it's important to realize that this is not necessarily a luxury service. I remember when I started 5 years ago. I mean, the field of professional organizing is relatively new. It's been here longer than people think. I think it started in the 70s back
Yeah,
in the US. But still, I do see a huge jump between now and 5 years ago when I started, and it's great that like more and more people are willing to ask for help.
yeah.
But like when I would tell people what I do, or even my family, they would be like, who has the money to afford you? Like, this seems to be like a first world problem. This seems to be such a luxury service. And I was like, the fact that it is luxury for some people doesn't mean that it's not a necessity for other people. So
Mhm.
it really, really depends which client comes to us and where they are at. I think it's really great, for example, here in the Netherlands, that our work can get subsidized by the government because the government legitimately sees it as a needed help, obviously after assessment of the client situation. But sometimes really people have a huge mental health issues or can't work, all of that. And for example, starting with their environment could be the place to begin with. So it really is not just a luxury service, and it's so important for the mental health.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're talking directly about that as finances. And let's talk through your sessions are about, say, €60, depending on how people package. Maybe that's where they start. It's a way to maybe even give someone a gift. And that's my also one of the things I revert to now that I've been uh, uh, having a family for longer, had my fourth child. I like give people services. Don't give them clutter. They don't need and this is no diss on the brand. Don't give them a bugaboo stroller, which is a nice one to have as ever since we saw it at the Sex and the City, but give them a service. If it's a night nanny, if it's a cleaner for a month, a meal train, maybe that is in general also
Mm.
a trend, how we support families and what we give new parents. Give them the service of someone coming in after 3 months to declutter, or even preventatively premarital counseling. It doesn't have to be marital, pre-relationship counseling. Like prevention just means I care for this, I care for us, I care for my well-being. So what can I do now so that this thing grows healthily? Um, um, Yeah, so it is a mindset thing of whether this is a luxury problem, if it's affordable, because yeah, we all know wedding registries or a baby registers, the pure amount of what we think we need to pay them and stuff, but the second hand market is booming. So there's always alternatives. It's mindset. So that is an
Mm.
educational issue that we have to do with our communities. Um, as we're
And
wrapping
I
up,
think,
yeah,
oh yeah.
no, go
Well,
for
I
it.
just wanted to say, I think it's also really important to realize the way I see things is that we were never meant to do things alone in isolation.
Yeah,
And like paying for services is really coming back to our, in a way, like tribal or village nature, where
yeah,
you do have support by people. And I mean, we live in the day and age where we have to pay for it, but it like absolutely should not be a taboo or something to be ashamed of to ask for help, because I mean, we were never meant to be isolated in four walls,
yeah.
and having to do everything alone.
Okay, so it's really this is another call for lean on your community, rethink what is something worth it to you or where you want to put your investment of if you have something over and just have a deep and hard think about this. So we want to lift the taboo of this. Yeah, it's not bad if you have cleaning help. It's not bad if you're going to a therapist. It's not bad if you're a capable person that needs help decluttering. So those are maybe some fallacies that we have. Thank you for today. I think we covered enough for people to have some conversations over. We'll answer more questions in the chats and the comments. And I really am grateful for this cross-pollination. Thank you, Lucie.
Me too. Thank you so much, Julika. Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful Wednesday. Bye bye.